I'm going to give you the number one reason that couples fight. Hey, it's Brian from lovehowdeep.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I really hope that you get a lot out of these videos and all this content that we provide when it comes to your marriage and your relationships, really with your spouse and with others. And so today will be no different, but we're going to talk a lot about why you fight. And there's probably lots of opinions on this. I'm going to tell you what my opinion is, and it's really based upon the research of John Gottman, famous couples researcher, worked with couples for decades. And what he discovered is that couples have two kinds of problems. And hey, doesn't that sound easy? We've only got two things to worry about. It's a little bit more than that. But the first kind of problem that couples deal with are solvable problems. And for Heather and I, that might be something like, where do we want to go eat for dinner? So maybe I want to go have Mexican and maybe she wants Italian. We have a little bit of a disagreement, but we come to the conclusion that, hey, all right, let's do Mexican tonight and maybe Italian next week or something, or vice versa. And we figure it out, we talk about it, there's no hard feelings, we're fine, we move on from it, we don't really think about it anymore. That's an example of a solvable problem. But there's this other problem called a perpetual problem. And that's the type of situation or issue that just keeps coming up over and over again. And that really is, in my opinion, the number one reason that couples fight. And the reason that the fights can be so dramatic, can be so deep, can be so difficult, can be so long lasting, they can be frequent. It's a perpetual issue. It can be different things for different couples. It could be something like what school to send your children to, private or public. It could be how to punish or how to instill consequences when your child misbehaves. I know that was one area that Heather and I had difficulty in, and I would say that's probably a perpetual issue for us, or it was, where she wanted to be more stern with the penalty, and we've got to follow up and we've got to take care of this. And I was a little bit more of, can we maybe just trust a little bit more and let this one go, and not really trying to get into right now the right or wrong of it, but just to give you an example of, this was something that was just such an ingrained, just deep difference that we both had. And unfortunately, it caused some pretty escalating arguments to the point that she and I have been married for almost 2 decades now. And it got to the point where there was a day or two where I was like, do I want to be married to this? And I think she probably had some of the same thoughts. And unfortunately, again, it was because of this perpetual issue. This thing that just kept coming up over and over again. Didn't matter how much we talked about it, didn't matter what we tried, it would just get so heated, so upsetting, so hard that it would escalate. It would almost get volcanic. And then what happens is, then she and I would just not want to talk about the issue. So we'd brush it aside and we'd maybe just sweep it under the rug, so to speak, because it was such a difficult issue. It was like, who wants to go through this again? And then if you're not careful, what can happen, which I think is what we had, maybe some small moments, is you can, again, start to question the entire connection that you have together. And it's, is there a purpose to this? Is there a point to us continuing if we can't seem to get along, we can't seem to figure this out? And again, that might be a situation that you might be in. Maybe there's a perpetual issue or a few that have come up that are just so overwhelming that you're to the point of, should I even continue with this thing? And I hope that what I'm getting ready to talk about now is going to give you a little bit of hope that you're not alone in this situation, and maybe some keys and some things to think about in order to make this a little bit better. But number one is, I want to tell you that according to John Gottman's research, he discovered that 69% of all problems or issues that couples face together, or against each other really, are of the perpetual variety, meaning that they're going to come up over and over again, and you're just going to keep butting your heads, and there's not going to be an easy answer to it. And then he says, conversely, 31% of what you deal with are solvable problems. Those are the easy things. So in some ways, maybe that's a little defeating and a little deflating to hear that, oh my gosh, 3/4 of what we face and what we go through are going to be perpetual, meaning that they're not going to have an easy solution, and they're going to cause a lot of chaos, a lot of hurt, a lot of distress. yes, I get that. But on the other hand, I hope that helps you to see that everyone goes through this and this is common and it's not anything that we're doing wrong. It just is what it is. And so, with that, I want to tell you a little bit about some things that you can do to help. Number one is you don't want to go too fast with trying to get to the solution because, as I told you a minute ago, the solution sometimes is not readily apparent. I know Heather and I worked with a couple just a few nights ago, and they had this type of an issue. It was no doubt it was a perpetual issue. And I even said at some point during the session, I said, most likely we're not going to get to a solution on this. And so I just want you to know that going into this, so we don't have to fight and we don't have to hash and gnash and grind to try to get to this when it's probably not going to happen. And that, again, that's okay. So again, not being too quick to the solution and almost putting that aside. And then it comes down to, okay, how do we figure this thing out? How do we go about this? Number one, it's all about communication. It's about trying to use the active listening, being empathetic, repeating back maybe what you've heard before you go into your own explanation, your own thoughts about that. Just being kind, being friendly, maybe using some humor could help occasionally. I would say, again, that's just a how you communicate that would be helpful. And then finally, I would say if you can't get to a solution, then or a solution maybe that you think is going to make everybody completely happy, then you might have to do one of these things. And it might be, okay, can we compromise? Can I give a little bit if you'll give a little bit? It might be, all right, let's try it your way this time. Let's see it through. Let's see how it works. Does it work? If it does, great. Let's keep going. If it doesn't, maybe it might be something that we try my way and then we look at that and see how that goes. Or it could be as we dialogue a little bit more, we come to this understanding of, oh, I didn't realize that was what was going on with this issue. So maybe being patient, drawing each other out. What are the hopes and dreams and the fears involved in this? And then if you can get to that, it might present itself, the solution might present itself a little bit easier. I want you to think about that next time you have an argument. Think about, is this perpetual or is this solvable? If it's solvable, then easy, then go for it. Try to work out a solution, get to the answer. If it's perpetual, meaning you notice that you're spinning your wheels, you're starting to get upset, you're agitating each other, you're not getting anywhere, then it's perpetual. Then you have to be a little bit more careful about how you work that. Hope this was helpful to you. If you like this video and you like other content that we've provided, please by all means subscribe to our channel. Also ring that bell and you'll get all the great content that we have here to offer at lovehowdeep.com. Take care until next time.